She wakes up in an ornate bed and wonders where she is. She questions if she's still dreaming and notes the strange dress. Servants rush in and call her the princess, while they hurry to help. She grimaces. It hurts, and she insists this can't be a dream. A maid tells her it's real, and that she must prepare because she's getting married today. She panics and asks if her wish last night came true. A brief flash of another scene makes her wonder if she crossed into a different realm. A voice reveals a past life. Huey Luo Bei, whose 25th birthday marks a turning point. She remembers always excelling in school and sports, but realizes success feels hollow at 25. She reflects at an awards ceremony and the pressure to have a man to be respected. She sees audiences dismissing a woman without a husband as a failure. Her parents pressure her with blind dates and disappointment at her single status. She recalls their anger over a graduation photo and their refusal to be friendly. She resents their expectations and wants a sweet marriage, not their scorn. On her birthday, she prays not for more success, but for a relationship that leads to marriage. She imagines the ideal man, tall, handsome, and rich, but focuses on the main point. She resolves that he must marry her. At a ceremony, an official proudly introduces Isabella as the pride of their country. The announcer confirms today is her last day at the palace, and that she will marry into the Holy Blood Empire to seal an alliance. The crowd toasts her and hails the new era of friendship between two clans. She notices strained expressions around her and wonders why everyone seems off. A woman tells her the envy stems from her noble blood, and that only she can marry for the country. She questions whether that's true and feels uneasy about the situation. The scene shifts to the next day and a spooky castle arrival. Dressed in black as if for a funeral, she anxiously asks why she must look like this for her wedding. She sees grim faces among nobles and wonders why they seem unhappy. Even the king and queen show no joy. A paladin named Alan steps forward as her escort and pledges to protect her. Courtiers reassure her that Alan will keep her safe during the journey. He promises safe arrival and says they should wait for the Holy Blood Empire's envoy. He reminds her she represents her country and must hold herself with pride. Guests worry the Holy Blood delegation is late and fret over protocol. Suddenly, the guests announce the arrivals have come. She is startled when the new man appears almost ghost-like and fears he is supernatural. She finds him angelic and handsome, despite her alarm. A voice says the Duke ordered a meeting with her. She panics at his red eyes and fangs and flails, terrified of marrying him. Her family presses her, insisting she become the princess consort and stressing their wealth depends on it. She panics again about coffins and bats and asks if this is a ghost marriage. The escort signals the procession to begin, and they prepare to depart. Outside, nobles congratulate themselves that their jewels and status are secure. Some parents worry whether Isabella's life is truly safe and admit it depends on luck. Inside a carriage, she hears Alan's voice and thinks the previous events might have been a dream, which frightens her again. She wonders if holy blood customs are to blame for the eerie ceremony. She arrives and is announced despite being inside a coffin-like carriage. The stranger kneels and apologizes for arriving late out of tradition, asking for understanding. She tries to explain she doesn't understand, but quickly backtracks to say he didn't intrude. He formally welcomes her to the Holy Blood Empire and warns not to misinterpret their old customs. He brags that their empire outshines Byzantium and boasts about their power. The man flatters her, calling her brighter than the sun, and she squeals, asking if he is her husband. He curtly says her real husband is waiting elsewhere. She looks disappointed, but says she sees his point. Alan reassures her that higher status means better-looking partners, implying the Duke will be attractive. The arriving envoy bows and says his mission is done and takes his leave, implying she need not marry him as a result. Guards block some doors, and only certain passages are allowed for her procession. A servant explains she can only use a specific door. She asks why the smallest door is required for her. A narration explains doors reflect clan status. Holy Blood uses the front entrance, while other doors reflect rank down to humans. She feels betrayed by her parents and questions if she was lied to about being a princess consort. She fears she might be ranked below a dog and compares herself to one. The dog passes proudly, and she admits she really isn't high status. In the guest room, she waits as instructed until summoned by the Duke. She complains that the Duke is late and suspects more odd marriage etiquette is at work. Alan explains the delay and warns that blood clans now look down on humans. A maid named Taro arrives and says the dukes are tired and won't see her, telling her to rest. She demands to know when they will meet her, but the maid can't say. She reluctantly accepts the wait, but senses something wrong with the plural they. An explanation box describes 4 dukes in the Holy Blood Empire, each controlling different domains. She asks who her husband is, and the maid replies that all 4 could be her husbands. The revelation shocks her, as she imagines being married to multiple men. She rejects the idea of becoming a vampire or being used by a clan. She resolves she cannot stay and vows to escape before becoming a half-breed vampire. At night, another woman confronts her on the wall and says she has been waiting, claiming to stop her from escaping. The newcomer admits she expected this and says she waited a long time. The new arrival insists doing what's right matters and argues that running won't help. She explains that sometimes laws and rules decide what must be done. Then a long history unfolds. Humans and Holy Blood have waged war for centuries, and the Holy Blood evolved to dominate and reproduce slowly while needing human numbers. The Holy Blood created a clan that no longer fears the sun and developed powers, turning humans into subjects. Human territory is consumed, and slavery grows as a result. To end conflicts, the Holy Blood's king proposed marrying a human princess to their prince to create peace, and intermarriage was accepted to save both races. She protests that this history shouldn't involve her personally. A warning appears that fleeing won't save her, because both nations would hunt her down. She insists escape is still preferable to marrying multiple men. The maid clarifies that the Holy Blood remain loyal to their partners even after a spouse dies, suggesting she could end up bound to several men over time. She questions why she must be the one to marry for this pact. The maid explains her fallen noble status, ancestral debts, and the family's arrangement to protect their daughter through marriage deals. The narrator labels her as a supposed useless number 1 eater in a humiliating legend and warns that marrying into Holy Blood could curse her line for generations. The maid laughs that the parents' worry makes sense and teases the possibility of being eaten or cursed. The maid admits most humans would not defend her. Human society needs stand-ins and doesn't care if one person dies. She asks if the maid is okay as the maid shows sympathy 89 continued. The protagonist admits she feels undesired, but refuses to accept being useless and vows a single mission to survive and become number 1 in her own way. She swears to make those who shamed her regret it. Half a month later at the palace square, she and Alan appear in public for a festival after training and mingling. She asks why she now seems aggressive instead of fleeing and insists she must move forward if others won't come for her. Onlookers compare their looks to the Holy Blood and lament their own appearance. Then she announces herself before the crowd, stepping forward to introduce the Byzantine Empire's princess. 4 dukes of the Holy Blood step up and tell her she blocks their way. One duke named Lin reassures her that another duke is temperamental but harmless. A hopeful admirer dreams of marrying a duke, and others warn she'll likely be matched with Asher instead. She learns the duke who earned the title Dracula will be the husband of the festival winner, and that the emperor arranged it. Asher is presented as the Holy Blood Empire's marshal, unmatched in strength and the favorite to win the Dracula title. A courtier mentions the emperor's hidden favor and jokes that another girl, Lynn, seems a better husband candidate, while Isabella still got lucky. The narrator observes Asher as cold and machine-like, emotionless in appearance. Isabella senses hostility in his eyes and fears he might be trying to kill her. He raises his bow and aims, heightening her dread about dying before their marriage. She convinces herself his intent is real and that he wants her dead. Despite being insulted, she reminds herself she remains the Byzantine princess and will not be pushed around. The nobles walk away, and she decides she cannot be openly harmed or looked down upon. A guard tells her the banquet is full, blocking her entry. Nearby nobles dismiss her as from a defeated country and not worth attention. Asher coldly declines to invite her back, preferring she leave the same way she came. 2 of the 4 dukes, Hugh and Catherine, smirk at the scene. Isabella refuses to retreat. She vows she won't let others control her and demands her basket. She wraps herself in a checkered cloak and leaves with a determined smile. The usher permits her to sit where she pleases, and she beams. She encourages performers to start, unfazed, forcing cheerfulness. The other nobles are stunned and convinced she acted deliberately to embarrass them. She casually eats while staying by her protector's side. The Dracula festival officially begins, and tensions rise on the field. Another noble questions whether such acting will win her the Duchess title. Catherine, revealed as female, decides they've lost and wants to leave. She angrily insists she only tries to help and berates the idea of marrying the useless princess. Asher unexpectedly disarms Catherine by letting go of his sword, confusing onlookers. Isabella reasons the winner must also marry her, so the victor would throw away reputation to refuse. Asher internally wonders how much she has been hated to be treated like this. Isabella thinks marrying him might not be bad since he's handsome and strong. Other dukes congratulate Asher on the double blessing and joke about the situation. A mocking duke comments that the princess won't stop him from moving forward. Isabella introduces herself brightly as Princess Isabella of the Byzantine Empire. Catherine and the others grow wary. She vows neither Catherine nor Asher will let her be cast aside. Her maid notes Asher's glare almost seemed murderous when he stared at Isabella. A blonde noble explains Isabella has admired Asher since childhood, so her reaction is natural. Isabella realizes nobles hate her for both her nationality and gender, and panics briefly. The group clarifies Catherine is actually a woman and one of the 4 dukes. The crowd marvels that the handsome man is a woman and finds the holy blood people fascinating. A noble comforts Isabella, claiming the Duchess title protects her from bullying. Isabella admits she hates herself for not being seen as equal, but vows to move others with her one day. Her supporter smiles and encourages her to do her best. Offstage servants gossip about the holy blood clan's strange manners and whether they would have helped with laundry. A man asks if Isabella is the real princess, and she plays along to deflect. He half-jokingly asks who really knows how to wash clothes among nobles. The question leads to teasing about the princess being a good eater and laundress. A surprised noble confronts Isabella about why she's dressed oddly and still here. He reminds her the engagement banquet starts soon and asks if she plans to attend. Isabella pants, but stubbornly decides to attend no matter what. She vows not to be driven off, even if everyone conspires to force her out. At the banquet hall, a noble wonders why she's late and notes time is running out before the ceremony. Isabella steels herself and refuses to miss such an important event. A lord inside frets about her absence. Catherine arrives splendidly and sneers, implying her rival is a weak human fiancé. A guest defends Isabella, saying she's not weak. Observers note Isabella knows her goals and works for them, making them slightly worried. Catherine narrows her eyes and wonders aloud what Isabella wants. She muses that Isabella seeks status, reputation, or maybe herself. Catherine reveals she arranged for Isabella not to be at the banquet originally. Asher confronts her about the plan, and she claims she only warned the maid to tell Isabella 10 minutes before the banquet. Asher accepts her tactics reluctantly, but warns against repeating them. He announces Catherine will lead the opening dance with him, and that the human princess will also be involved. Isabella bursts into the hall, apologizing for being late. A noble beams that she arrived just in time. Catherine argues it's impossible for Isabella to have come so fast from the West Wing. Asher suspects the maid somehow failed, but Catherine denies it. Isabella is spotted moving through a rose field outside the palace as a possible shortcut. Catherine admits she underestimated Isabella's daring. The butler explains the emperor ordered Asher and Isabella to lead the dance as a paired honor. Isabella curtsies and introduces herself to the Lord Duke as Asher's fiancée. She grips Asher's hand tightly and is warned not to resist his majesty. Catherine quietly tells Isabella she's going out of her way and hints they share history. Guests speculate Isabella blends well with the holy blood and is not easily intimidated. Catherine reveals she learned Isabella's family fell in status, so Isabella must learn to fit in. Catherine feels pity for Asher having to marry such a woman and wonders about the emperor's motives. Another noble reminds everyone the emperor must have his reasons. Isabella admits she took ballroom classes in college and would survive the dance. Asher suggests switching to tap dancing for the next round, surprising everyone. The blonde noble protests that tap dancing is too civilian and unbecoming. Asher asserts he is the host and can choose the entertainment. Isabella accuses him of deliberately provoking her. He smiles and says he planned it. He teases that if she had known, she would have joined their fun earlier. They bicker loudly like equals, shocking the crowd. Catherine suddenly catches a familiar fragrance and wonders about it. Guests murmur that a scent, like human blood, is strangely fragrant in the hall. Asher suddenly kisses Isabella, leaving guests stunned and Isabella confused. A blonde noble rushes to her, insisting she needs immediate treatment after the surprise. Isabella shrugs off the injury and says the banquet cannot be ruined for one small wound. Her friend worries Asher looks unhappy and suggests she let him go, hoping he'll calm down. The friend offers to take her for treatment and urges her to get help. Asher orders someone to bring her to treatment because she chose to participate and cannot leave early. The friend insists she should go. Asher counters she should stay. Catherine scolds both for misbehaving during such an event and warns them to remember status. The two men try to escort Isabella at the same time, nearly tripping her. They steady her and check she's all right. She smiles and says she's fine. Asher admonishes her for disrespecting the holy blood by coming and going as she pleases. Isabella retorts she never planned to leave and can still carry on. Catherine insists Isabella needs real treatment or she'll be shamed later. An onlooker calls out for them to stop the argument. Catherine reminds everyone Isabella is Asher's fiancée and shouldn't be approached too closely. A maid gently asks Isabella to come with her for care. Catherine assures a blonde lord that she and Isabella grew up together and will be looked after. She adds that the emperor gave special instructions to care for the princess. The maid prepares a remedy said to be the best for holy blood wounds, and Isabella thanks her. Later, the maid tucks Isabella into bed and tells her the Majesty ordered rest, so she must recuperate for tomorrow's banquet. Duke Asher wins the Dracula title, and the narrator explains the Majesty is the prominent member of the Holy Blood Empire for generations. A finely wrapped dress box is shown, said to be prepared since she's out of dresses. She smiles, assuming Duke Lin prepared it, and asks that the Duke be told she'll rest and arrive on time tomorrow. The next day arrives with a shout about her foot, as she reacts to something unexpected. She sits up bewildered, wondering why things went wrong. She cries that the jealous woman went too far, and it's unbearable. A servant reminds her about today's banquet, and she insists she'll attend. She vows not to be pushed into staying and refuses to give in to their tricks. She steels herself, thinking being associated with disability won't stop her showing up. The doors open, and an announcement says His Majesty has arrived. She apologizes for being late, but insists she didn't plan to be late today. Guests whisper about her injured legs and are surprised she can walk. She asks a seated woman if she's in her place, and a retort points out the name on the seat for being late. The hostess tells her to find another empty seat, and she asks if any empty seat will do. She decides to sit in an available chair without hesitation. She claims as the new Duchess Dracula she should sit near her husband, but someone insists the seat isn't for her. She questions who the seat belongs to as she looks around in shock. A man loudly demands a divorce, calling the marriage a disgrace and wanting it ended immediately. A guard points a sword and yells that she dares sit in the queen's seat, frightening her. A concerned ally asks if she's all right as she panics at the sight of blood and faints at the idea she might see it. The husband scolds her for feigning fainting and demands she repay the deceased queen, accusing her of disrespect. He shoves her aside, and she tumbles, crying out as she's pushed into people. The king of the Holy Blood Empire introduces himself in a threatening tone as she freezes in front of him. She nervously greets His Majesty as he stands over her, making her stammer. She notes that someone unfazed by fear can still show respect to the king, and his reserved gaze returns the courtesy. The presiding official calls everyone to take their seats for the meeting. A royal emissary explains the vacant queen's seat should be taken by Duchess Dracula. The emperor asks when the princess plans to marry, and the reply is simply, tonight. She questions whether a marriage can be arranged so hastily and looks uncertain. The emperor confirms tonight again and asks if preparations are needed, to which he is told no. He says formality isn't required and insists the necessary few things will be done, though it won't be grand. She asks what the princess means and ponders whether her opinion matters at all. She privately admits she wanted a perfect wedding and a loving husband, but shrugs that regret won't help now. She then says plainly that she has no opinion on the matter. The official decides the wedding will take place in an hour, finalizing the plan. The officer formally asks Duke Dracula Asher if he will marry Princess Isabella and be her lawful husband. Asher answers with a clipped, "I do." The marriage vow to Isabella follows, making them husband and wife, and a ring appears to seal it. She reflects that despite the small ceremony, the ring changes everything, and she is finally married. She happily realizes from now on he is her husband, and feels elated. She panics briefly, wondering if marriage means they must sleep together right away. He curtly says they will be staying here, and she is baffled and anxious. He announces that she committed a crime against the deceased queen, and the death penalty can be avoided, but punishment is necessary. She must spend 7 days in the cemetery repenting for the queen. She laments being forced to stay in the cemetery on her wedding night, and fears being the first to endure such a fate. Alone in the cemetery at night, she insists there's no ghost, but grows frightened when something appears. She notices someone else there, and asks why he is present, startled into silence. A gentleman arrives to congratulate her for marrying as she wished, and says he came for that reason. She says there's nothing to congratulate, and he replies that compared to decades of life, this small punishment will pass, so she should bear it. She asks if she feels more depressed than comforted, while he comforts her that Asher will be moved by her one day if she does not give up. He notes the cemetery is large, but has few graves and muses that vampires live longer, so age is complicated. He adds that vampires don't age like humans, and claims his statement should be true. She points out the Holy Blood clan's king looks old, prompting curiosity. He asks if she has met the king, and she confirms she has. She can't describe him because no human lives after seeing him, and her friend insists she didn't see his face. She remembers the king's old, wrinkled fingers and jokes that it explains things. A voiceover reveals rumors. The king loved human girls and took beautiful wives, yet none survived and no one knows why. Portraits of past wives imply they died one by one without explanation. The man says when they learned the duke sought a bride they were shocked, but now they understand and she asks why. She concludes it's because the king is too old, and she says that matter-of-factly. He imagines that if the king had Asher's body she'd be in trouble, and she still senses something odd. She notes the Holy Blood clan don't seem as bloodthirsty as expected and wonders at the discrepancy. He smiles and says appearances can be deceiving depending on outcomes. A flashback shows a bloody scene, and they confirm the queen truly died in a disaster. There's no doubt about it. He explains it's not strange to die in such an accident, and that even old clan members resist blood, but temptation can last years. She asks if there's any way to survive this punishment, and listens intently. He advises she must let Asher truly fall for her with sincere love, not just rely on titles or the clan's status. He says human life is short, but true love can keep someone loyal for a lifetime, so she must make him fall from the heart. She thinks of Asher and resolves that to save her life this is the only option, even if it's difficult. 7 days later, she practices cooking despite never having done it in 25 years, determined to win Asher by feeding him. A servant notices a strange smell and wonders what it is as she experiments in the kitchen. She believes her exclusive secret recipe will surely make Asher like her. She serves the dish with giddy hope, claiming it's cooked with love, while Asher looks uneasy. Suddenly, someone shouts to take the assassin away and punish her, baffling her completely. Asher and the others demand to know where the assassin is, as confusion spreads. Asher accuses her of revealing evil intentions since her arrival, and claims to have caught her trace, implying betrayal. Guards seize her and shout to put her in a cell for interrogation, while she protests she's not an assassin. She screams that she was wronged as thunderous guilt rolls through her. Behind bars, she sobs that she only made her first cake with all her heart, and asks who she offended to be labeled an assassin. Courtiers hurry to the scene with urgency, and someone calls for the princess. A concerned noble asks why she was placed in a cell again, and questions the judge's decision to call a trial so suddenly. Asher says he's not joking, and that everything follows the proper flow of the process. The proceedings begin, and an official asks the jury about the poisoning allegation against Princess Isabella. He demands Asher's opinion on whether the cake is poisoned, and Asher responds curtly that his opinion is obvious and unnecessary. He flails, shouting that the cake must be poisonous but no one will test it, creating a tense scene. The jury chair asks for opinions from others about testing the cake. A dark-haired juror sides with Duke Asher, saying no test is needed because no holy blood member is worth sacrificing for a human princess. Other jurors murmur support, and one formally seconds the motion. The judge prepares to declare the poisoning case closed when a young noble volunteers to try the cake himself, surprising everyone. He steps forward and says he is of the Holy Blood clan and not afraid of poison, offering to taste it. People scramble for the medical team when someone collapses after tasting the cake, causing panic. The blonde noble coughs, and the crowd shouts for medical help in alarm. He insists to wait a minute as he coughs, creating a tense pause. Nearby people ask if they are all right, and they reassure each other they are fine, despite coughing fits. The dark-haired juror demands a baker prove it is safe to make such a cake, insisting that if there's no poison, it's a great achievement. Asher quietly remarks that since the two countries are at war, and she is from the Byzantine Empire, her motives for wanting to marry into the Holy Blood clan are suspect, but he calls the jury's assessment not bad. Another noble urges, giving her a chance to explain and questions whether Asher finally realizes he might be wrong. In her cell, she cries that her cake isn't poisoned and pleads innocence. The judge says facts and evidence will prove everything, and the guard reiterates that truth will come out. The juror asks why she would make such a cake, and she pauses, thinking about her reasons. She remembers never cooking much, but wanting to try a dish inspired by her homeland and a starry sky pie concept. Asher works so hard he never rests, and someone wishes people would pause to look at the stars. A cake is made as an excuse so Asher can rest and be reminded to enjoy the sky, though the speaker admits they're embellishing the story. A girl asks to be allowed out and is told her request will be relayed and granted soon. A man stands staring at the night sky, lost in thought. Another defends the girl's urge to look at stars, saying her reasons, valid or not, shouldn't be judged. A worried courtier fears if the king learns he might blame himself. The girl breathes deep outside the castle, exulting in the smell of freedom. A maid warns she's not fully free yet and must come with them. She's surprised to learn Duke Asher ordered her to train as a maid and study until she graduates. She panics at the warning that if anyone discovers her true identity, she'll be sent back to the Byzantine Empire. She decides this isn't a punishment but Asher avoiding her, and resolves to graduate. She remembers loving desserts in her previous life and is thrilled at learning to make them here. She argues one small taste won't hurt and reaches for a pastry. Seeing many treats, she rationalizes taking one. Head chef Teresa catches her stealing and scolds her sternly. The girl pleads hunger and innocence, eyes watering. Teresa slaps her and insists she can't eat without working first. Teresa claims authority over the kitchen, orders her to mix puff pastry, and warns no food if she doesn't work. The girl is clueless about what puff pastry or dough means. Teresa demands to know her background. The girl refuses and admits she's more afraid of Asher than Teresa. She fears offending Asher could get her sent away. Teresa says she'll treat her like any ordinary person and gives strict instructions to mix 4 flours in exact proportions and knead 1,000 portions. The girl freaks at the 1,000 count and worries there aren't enough ingredients. Other maids present the raw materials and explain these pastries honor soldiers on the battlefield, urging gratitude. They say desserts are an important award, and the girl should be proud of the profession. The girl inspects unfamiliar items, like baking powder, and remarks about the Holy Blood clan's peculiar tastes. Teresa strikes her again, demanding precise measurements rather than guessing. The girl protests that 1-to-1 seems the same, while Teresa asks if her hands can match a measuring cup. She flashes back to a past life of rigorous scientific training and precise hands. She feels out of place married into nobility. Resolving to follow the rules, she agrees to work hard. Teresa reminds her daily labor matters, and she nods, accepting the lesson. The girl laments that the head chef can't even boil chicken soup and feels misunderstood, then finishes an exhausting shift, starving with no cake left. The smell of roasted chicken tempts her, but the plate holds only bones, and she wonders why anyone would keep obvious leftovers. Seeing a difficult math problem on a board, she decides since she ate someone else's chicken, she might as well help solve the owner's problem. A voice shouts and people react as someone announces the chief entered a room last night. The blue-haired man tells everyone to gather quickly at the palace square. The assembly bell is ringing. Maids scramble, and the head calls out for Bella by name. The bell summons everyone. No one can ignore the assembly call. Bella is dragged awake, despite promising to work the later shift, because the 4 dukes are calling. She learns the bell assembly concerns everyone in the Holy Blood clan, and it's something urgent. The last bell sounded when war with the Byzantine Empire was declared. She vows that if war comes, as the Byzantine princess, she would be cannon fodder and resolves she can't let them go to war. She rushes to the assembly, but finds the hall empty and wonders if it's a prank. At the assembly, she hears the announcement that a thief entered the palace, prompting concern. She feels guilty because a chicken went missing and wonders if they suspect her. The leaders say a single stolen chicken might be a provocation meant to challenge the palace. Guards search every room, and no one is allowed to return to their chambers. The girl contemplates hiding any evidence, so no one links the theft to her. Reports arrive that every room was searched, but one was exempt. The blue-haired man reveals all rooms were checked, except Madame Isabella's. Because Isabella remains nominally Duke Asher's wife, her room must be searched too. Some nobles resist, but the order comes to search and report to the emperor if necessary. The officers believe finding the plate will prove the thief was Isabella, and they'll make trouble for her. One official expresses sympathy, but admits even a missing plate can create huge fuss. The servant is relieved the plate wasn't found. Bella decides she can't return the plate, so she hides it in the bathroom, tucking it away where it can't be seen. Meanwhile, the blue-haired man vows to keep searching for the person who solved his formula and swears he won't give up. He imagines that person as the god of his heart. Exhausted, Bella returns to her room to find a mess and that her bed was wet from the search, and she blames the Duke's men. She asks if others' rooms were treated the same and is told they are not sure. She suspects the search was intentional and has to follow the invaders' rules. Despite resentment, she promises not to let the situation harm the one she cares about and vows to find a way out. Her ally advises she first get out of the kitchen before attempting any grand plan. Energized the next morning, she wakes early to work and study, determined to climb to the top. She pledges to prove progress through real action and starts preparing desserts enthusiastically. After hours of work, she finishes a simple cake and adds mint leaves for decoration. Teresa tells her it doesn't look perfect but should taste good, and asks her to try it. Teresa declares none of the other cakes match hers, and decides to use hers at the evening banquet. The kitchen prepares for the night's feast in the grand banquet hall. The group samples a dessert and praise how delicious it is while laughing together. One noble offers a pink pastry to a serious man and urges him to try it. The serious man reluctantly accepts the cake, after some teasing and promises to eat it. The noble asks who baked it and decides to reward the maker, while a maid answers that Bella made it. The noble repeats the name Isabella with bright admiration as everyone reacts. The serious man admits he's never heard of her, while the woman beside him says Isabella is a newcomer with talent. The noble insists on rewarding and praising talent, and a maid bows, promising to pass on the message. A flustered servant calls after the maid and asks how to help as the noble departs. A startled older woman obeys orders without question when told to follow through. A reflective voice explains that human blood is alluring to the Holy Blood people and hints that makes the cake so special. The next day, servants gossip that because of Isabella's excellent cake, she will run the banquet's desserts, which some resent as she's inexperienced. A shy girl accepts the responsibility and thanks them, nervous but determined. She panics when told she must prepare 3,000 servings, including for the king, and wonders about how much blood the recipe needs. She steels herself, deciding to go all out since failing might mean staying trapped forever if she refuses to act. The grand banquet hall is prepared for the Rejuvenation Festival dinner as guests gather. The king arrives cloaked and is greeted formally as attendees stand to welcome him. Everyone is told to take their seats and the hooded couple sit at the head table. A lord asks where Lady Isabella is, and hears that the princess is in the kitchen, so the cake will be tasted later. The serious man warns not to bully her again, and the other replies obediently, looking guilty. A blonde noble whispers about being told off and wonders how it feels to be reprimanded. The hooded host says they must not let Duke Asher's duchess down and signals to start the banquet. The head maid confirms the duchess made the desserts when asked by the man beside her. Guests rave that the dessert is the most delicious they've ever eaten. Everyone praises it enthusiastically. The king abruptly stands and declares he must go save someone, leaving people confused about his destination. Back in the kitchens, the head says the banquet is ending and sends the maids to rest, while keeping one to finish tasks. A maid laments the wasted opportunity as she looks at the unused dessert area. The guilty chief from the kitchen is scolded and told she shouldn't have touched someone else's cake after being found near it. The king storms in, startling the maid, who panics and calls out as he approaches. He grabs the pale girl protectively when a maid tries to explain, and the atmosphere grows tense. The group asks what happened to Isabella when they find her, and the hooded man demands an explanation soon. The king gives the maid time to think before requiring a formal explanation, and she reluctantly agrees. Two nobles whisper, trying to figure out who leads the kitchen while scanning for the responsible person. The trembling kitchen worker begs to explain from the floor, pleading with the men above her. Isabella wakes up in an unfamiliar bed, and a servant explains it's Duke Asher's bedroom, the room of her husband. She blushes at the idea of sleeping with her sweetheart and seems stunned by the reality of marriage. Guards report she lost a little blood, but the king is reassured and told not to worry about it. The king sternly orders that the princess, also his wife, must never be hurt like that again, and the attendant answers yes. Isabella gleefully realizes she will stay in Asher's room from now on, and excitedly imagines sleeping together. An attendant soothes her, saying that once the king's health is stabilized and she bears a child, her status will be secure. Alone in the dark, she reflects that at 25, she has never held a man's hand until now, and wonders what a wedding night means. She nervously imagines how to behave and feels overwhelmed by romantic fantasies about kissing and exploring. Someone asks what she's thinking as a figure appears behind her, making her twist in embarrassment. She notices Asher has put his clothes back on and wonders when he dressed, while he looks awkward himself. He assures her he won't do anything tonight, trying to calm her flustered hopes. She misinterprets his meaning and protests. He clarifies ambiguously until she presses him further. He hints there's a tradition about a married couple's harmony that could be arranged where he comes from, and seems to consider it. A saying about wives following their husbands is presented humorously, as she imagines obedient animals portraying the idea. She tells him she's already his wife, so he can do what he wants, speaking shyly and a little resigned. She vows to do her best, and then puckers up, making him nervous as hearts float around them. He wonders why she hasn't kissed him yet, and jokes whether she meant she's a chicken or a dog, which embarrasses her more. She insists she's willing, though she shyly squints and says the point is her consent, not the animal comparison. He realizes he isn't willing right now, so he wasn't intending to consummate the marriage yet, and she understands his hesitation. She accepts that it's probably too soon, and agrees they should wait since it feels fast for both of them. He tosses his cloak aside and offers a compromise. She can take the bed while he sleeps on the sofa, which she playfully refuses. He declares she won't get his bed, and she wonders if she's being too enthusiastic about affection again. They learn the king sent someone to watch them outside, so only one room is left free and separation is enforced. She worries about being cold at night, but he tells her to use his robe as a cover. She notices the robe smells like him, and that he only wears it for important occasions, feeling both comforted and special. Lying awake, she reflects that sleeping in the same room with a man kept her from sleeping and wonders why he looks so indifferent. She thinks how incredible it is that such a beautiful man is her husband, and feels a bit lost because he doesn't seem to like her back. She wishes he could love her genuinely, and then catches herself daydreaming. Meanwhile, she notices his sleeping posture is messy and unattractive. A steady hand pats her awake and announces it's time to rise, though she protests that it's still night. She groans, but he insists she must follow his schedule now that she's in his room and asks where he's taking her. He drags her out for morning exercise, surprising her with sudden urgency. She faints at the sight of him, half-dressed, and worries if he's cold. While an onlooker comments on his figure, he replies that she may not run, but as his woman she cannot sleep in, insisting on discipline. A servant is launched out of the scene comically as she overreacts to the strictness, while she reminds herself that hard-working people accomplish more. She insists she's not lazy and remembers being the only one in the school library at 4 in the morning. So solitude and effort are nothing new to her. She vows to prove she has ambitions and won't be underestimated, running to keep up with Asher's rigorous pace. Observers whisper that Asher has become harder since he turned into Dracula and admire his figure, while noting something dragging behind him. The princess pushes herself to keep pace, thinking she must run 20 laps to match him despite exhaustion. Dizziness creeps in, and she feels close to fainting from strain. A concerned blonde noble steadies her when she falters and asks if she's all right, urging her not to move because she's hurt. She insists she's fine and explains she wanted to run of her own will, not because he forced her, while he tells the others they can ask her themselves. A blonde noble protests that the king ordered kindness toward the princess and scolds the serious man for allowing her to run given her illness. The serious man replies calmly that she chose to run and invites the noble to question her personally if he doubts it. The princess confirms she wanted to run, and the blonde noble softens and promises to judge fairly, asking why the serious man cares so much about his duchess. Hearing him called Duchess makes her blush with surprise and delight at the title. The blonde noble teases that now that she's admitted to being the Duchess, he expects kinder treatment toward her. The serious man states firmly that family matters are private, and he will decide what to do for his own household. He warns the arrogant noble not to push him, and challenges him to back down if he thinks he can beat him. Another woman chides Lynn for overreacting, saying Asher's affairs are personal, so she shouldn't intervene. The black-haired maid questions why the blonde noble seems so concerned about Asher's duchess, and he becomes silent. The princess is asked if she's okay and answers yes, smiling gently despite everything. The blonde noble declares he will report the situation to the king if the duchess really was harmed. He bows out to leave first, followed by others who decide to depart as well. Servants whisper that Asher has never behaved like this before, and that the princess has already attracted the attention of 2 dukes in the short time she's been here. A dark-haired attendant warns the noble that he might go crazy someday too if he grows obsessed. Someone flips a book closed dramatically and scoffs that she's not even a math expert, downplaying the fuss around her. The maid reminds the serious man to remember what was said today, leaving a final warning hanging in the air. She wakes at 8 and wonders how to spend the long day, then heads toward the kitchen to take a look. She finds Teresa badly bandaged and is shocked. Teresa refuses help and announces she will run the kitchen from now on, leaving the protagonist flustered. Servants fuss over her with food and drink, but she refuses to drink anymore. She thinks about a meaningful but painful past and asks why she is even here now. Bored, she sighs about life in the kitchen, where it's all eating and chores. She walks through the rooms to a blackboard and remembers tying someone's chicken up long ago. She treats that act as compensation for something she did. Hearing a noise, she calls out and then freezes when footsteps approach. A man notes a woman is present and vows he'll find her. The Duke asks the maid if Isabella has returned, and the servant answers no. The Duke warns the doors will close at 9 and tells her she doesn't need to come in if she misses it. She bangs on the locked doors at 9:01, protesting the harshness. She realizes she can't stay with Alan because Im has returned to Asher's care. She notices the walls are low enough and decides the risk of climbing is her only option. Later, she practices a coy line about not seeing something on purpose and claims she really didn't see anything. She jokes about body structure to reassure someone awkwardly. She insists her beauty isn't ruined by a flaw and gushes awkwardly while making him uncomfortable. She admits she got lost while wandering. He teases her about being able to get lost, despite being clever at shortcuts. She pouts and insists she truly did get lost. He mocks that she, as a woman, still manages to be lost and says she should be able to find shortcuts. She sulks and insists she really did get lost. He tells her to take a shower, when she won't admit the truth she heard. He refuses to have her dirty her floor and orders her to clean up before returning. She lies awake, thinking the math problem in the study was left there just for her, and questions whether she only ate one piece of his chicken. She is surprised he didn't throw her out and even gave her a new quilt. She daydreams that Asher might have fallen in love with her. She clarifies she only wants to avoid being scolded by His Majesty. A cloaked messenger declares Isabella is his wife and warns he doesn't want to hear her name again. The masked man reminds a subordinate that taking care of his wife is his only duty for now, and the other obeys. The Duke decides the woman is a jinx and tells her to follow him instead of going to the kitchen. She asks where he's planning to take her, and he says she'll find out tomorrow. She lies in bed convinced he wants to get along and believing things will improve. She finds a clue about the goddess, a shoe left behind. Officers discuss searching among thousands of identical maid shoes to confirm the palace origin. Asher puts on a composed face and says he knows nothing. The investigator vows not to give up and believes the missing woman will show again. She appears in a military uniform, saying Asher told her to dress that way. Officers question whether she really has rights to wear the uniform, and one confirms Asher allowed it. He declares she's coming with him to the barracks. A woman lashes out, outraged and threatening to protest to the marshal about letting her in. She asks if it's truly okay to wear the outfit, and Asher replies it's fine, and promises better shoes later. She follows Asher to the barracks, greeting Lord Dracula as they walk. She admires the handsome men lining up, but notes they are all cold. She decides it's still safer to stay near the Duke than face those unfriendly soldiers. She admires the collection of swords and remembers her old liking for cold weapons. Asher hands her a sword and asks if she likes it. She answers yes. She realizes the sword belongs to his ancestors and is shocked. He explains these swords were taken from human generals over years, and that those generals died under his sword, without exception. She clenches her fist when he asks if she feels sorry for her people, and she says no. She admits she went to the human empire alone, but insists her soul still belongs to the Holy Blood clan in name. She feels no real attachment to those swords, even though they represent bloodshed. Flashing memories show her parents selling her and her people sacrificing her interests for gain, and she feels utterly alone from that moment. She decides that once she stepped into the Holy Blood Empire, she is officially part of that clan and cut ties with her old life, despite her heart remaining elsewhere. She declares her heart is here, and not with her old clan. Back in the study, another officer protests that Isabella must never enter the barracks, but Asher calmly says it's fine. The protesting officer asks if everyone truly agrees. A masked man behind the window says Asher knows what he's doing, and the officer yields. Still, some remain unconvinced and can't accept her presence. A subordinate child asks Asher for permission to build a swing in the barracks, showing the relaxed mood. Asher points out this is the barracks and scolds that such behavior is not decent. She brashly greets Duchess Catherine and is ignored, leaving her embarrassed. From the hallway, she wonders why the others act cold and why making friends seems so important. One of the officers slaps a desk in anger, asking what the other was thinking. The officer accuses Asher of keeping her by his side every day and questions his intentions, while Asher denies romantic motives. Asher promises to explain later and insists he does not like her, though she accuses him of acting as if he does. The other officer asks if he's unhappy because she came to the barracks, hinting jealousy. Asher recalls that he had once planned to marry her, but says he would never have the chance now. A sudden knock interrupts them as someone arrives, and they stop the argument. The officer asks what Asher was trying to say earlier, and Asher urges to forget the past, insisting their relationship with Isabella isn't what it seems. Outside, she realizes she might have been the one to break up someone in the past, and understands why Asher resents her. She sighs about always missing perfect timing in love. She freezes when she hears someone ask if she overheard everything. Another officer confronts her about eavesdropping on his conversation with Asher. She protests she didn't eavesdrop, and he tells her to stop pretending and agrees to simply explain things now. He lays out their shared history. They were default heirs who grew up together and trained as one. He adds that they joined the army together and developed deep feelings that no one can break. He warns that even if she's Asher's wife, She remains an outsider to their bond. He orders her to stay home quietly and not cause a fuss. This is an order, not a discussion. She notices the other's expression, looks exactly like someone she once dreamed of. She remembers once thinking she was the same type of confident, boastful person as them. Now she feels like an outsider trying to fit in, uncertain what to do. Only her plate holds human food, and she feels different from the rest. Other soldiers ask if she bullied the princess again, and she defensively replies she's not free to act as she pleases. A blonde man snaps that no one will treat her nicely if she doesn't speak up, while another asks why Asher doesn't care more for his wife. She decides to keep her distance, so she won't bother them, and because Asher likely doesn't want the trouble. She doesn't eat, but only clears her plate so it's not dirty. She thinks it's better not to give them any more trouble. She fears Asher would scold her otherwise, and wonders if she is that scary to him. In a quiet bath, she promises she has not forgotten her studies and that her current face is better than before, yet she still feels something missing, a sense of belonging. She watches the dazzling officers and admits she will always be an outsider among those men. She concludes that to him, she is only a stain in his life. She believes he will never like her. Suddenly, someone calls her name and asks her to come over. He asks again whether she is scary, and she mumbles uncertainly. She panics and asks if she did something wrong or if he has orders for her. He reassures her she did nothing wrong and that she need not worry. He tells her he thought it over and realizes he had been too harsh. He promises from now on he will stop showing his ugly expression and be kinder. A shadowy elder confirms that since she joined the Holy Blood Empire, she is now considered part of the Holy Blood clan, and he believes she is telling the truth. See, Elizabeth is welcomed into the Holy Blood household and gently patted on the head, as she's told she can call this place home. She smiles brightly and agrees to work hard together with them. A servant compliments her cooking, while she replies that everything is finally heading the right way. She daydreams that Asher now treats her kindly, has given her freedom, and lets her do as she pleases. A companion teases that she only won Asher's favor and lowered his guard. She points across to a grand building and declares that her true purpose lies there. Confused, Elizabeth asks what that place is and why it matters to her. She's shown a silhouette of the king and told that Asher will inherit the throne, making her his wife and the future queen. The advisor bluntly says the clan won't accept a human queen without her proving strength and building power. They explain that fitting in will mean navigating scheming dukes and dangerous politics. They outline how her family's low status before the war made marriage to someone like Catherine expected, and how Asher's rise changed that. The narrator explains how Asher's military success raised his family's status dramatically. Elizabeth learns Catherine only regretted things when it was too late, and that Asher likely agreed for political reasons. The advisor says Asher now accepts Elizabeth's existence and instructs her to play the Duchess's role. Her task is simple: make friends and blend in. Asher notices her hesitation and asks what's wrong. She admits she wanted to discuss something important. He preempts any awkwardness by refusing to share his bed, which startles her. He calmly tells her to respect his boundaries, despite accepting her presence. She nervously asks if she can host a tea party in his name, and he allows it so long as she doesn't damage the house. Relieved, she hugs him and beams with gratitude. He agrees she can do as she pleases if she keeps the place intact, making her ecstatic. As he watches her, he blushes and wonders if he's obsessed. He grows shy and abruptly leaves, telling her to turn around and give him space. She mutters that he's moody and pouts. Later, she sits primly at a tea table, resolved to make the best of becoming a duchess's wife. Servants gossip that no one came to Catherine's prepared tea party and blame her for stealing the duchess's fiancé. A stern guard interrupts the maids and demands they explain themselves. The maids stammer and apologize when he rebukes them. Catherine apologizes privately and worries she messed up, but a friend reassures her it's not her fault. She's told that fitting into a new clan won't happen overnight. Asher insists he'll support her, saying at least she still has him. He offers a late-night meal and asks if she's hungry. He invites her to eat with him and urges her to try his cooking. She finds the food delicious and happily eats it, surprising him. He sheepishly presents broccoli, hoping she'll try it. She promises to make it for him every day if he likes it, which embarrasses him. Outside, Servants observe that the two are getting along and wonder if Asher has gone soft. One complains that he attended a banquet during work hours and even ate broccoli. A blonde retorts that Asher is blinded by love. But the blue-eyed guard growls he cannot tolerate Isabella's behavior any longer. The blonde teases that the princess might be the reason others whisper about him. The blue-eyed guard fumes about Isabella and the danger she brings. He scolds Asher for eating broccoli, since holy blood people dislike green vegetables. Asher defends himself, saying he ate it to avoid upsetting Isabella. The blonde remarks that Asher behaves unusually caring and questions his motives. Asher explains she's not like others. She was gifted to him by the king and deserves better treatment. The blonde teases that Asher's actions show he's fallen in love, which Asher denies. The blonde tells him to stop denying his feelings and accept them. Asher hesitates, thinking over his emotions. He quietly admits he discovered she's actually kind and different from his expectations. The two joke, and Asher shrugs off the teasing. The blonde asks if Asher can still attend the monthly inspections. He agrees, despite being tired. Elizabeth waits alone in the palace and wonders why Asher hasn't returned. A guard later tells her he won't come back tonight and that she may sleep in his bed while he's gone. She joyfully rolls around on the bed, reveling in the comfort and how interesting Asher is. She wonders if his acceptance means something more. She imagines a romantic moment and panics that it's moving too fast. Still, she reasons that since Asher treats her well, becoming close isn't impossible. She feels hopeful that things will improve, even if she can't fully join the Holy Blood clan. She encourages herself to keep going and believes surprises await. At the same time, Asher sneezes at being thought about and jokingly blames the princess for thinking of him. He orders troops to head to the East District immediately to finish inspections quickly. The blonde questions why he's rushing and reminds him inspections usually take days. Asher says someone is waiting for him and can't bear to be apart. Elizabeth, alone by a window, senses unease and uneasiness grows in her chest. Soldiers arrive. A female officer declares she's here to take the Duchess to meet with Catherine. The officer claims she has limited information, but refuses to wait for Asher's return. When Elizabeth asks to wait, the officer firmly refuses. Guards threaten force if Elizabeth resists, and she asks what they plan to do. The officer coldly states she acts on the Duke's orders and cannot be refused, so they seize Elizabeth. Elizabeth panics, wondering where Asher is and why they suddenly want to take her away. Asher and the blonde argue about leaving immediately. He insists he must go. Elizabeth's uneasiness intensifies as strange energy crackles outside. At a courtroom, evidence is presented claiming Isabella conspired with the enemy, and she's asked to plead. She denies the accusation and remembers feeling abandoned since marrying into the Holy Blood Empire. She swears she would never harm the Empire and insists she was loyal. The prosecutor challenges her, pointing to the letter's contents as proof. Whispers accuse her of being a threat and speculate about seizing power. She reveals that the accusations are hasty and questions the quick judgment. She asks the Supreme Judge if one can be condemned on just a few sheets of paper. The court counters that the letters bear seals, similar handwriting, replies from the human king, and a witness supports the evidence. Her chief guard explains he delivered those letters personally and cannot hide the matter. He claims he's only the messenger, not the plotter. Isabella cries that she did nothing wrong and protests her innocence. The prosecutor argues guilty people rarely confess willingly and recommends torture to ensure safety. The judge slams the gavel and declares Isabella guilty of treason during the trial. Isabella is told she will be executed later, but held in jail first because of her status. She faints in shock. She screams that she is the Duchess Dracula and demands to see Asher from behind bars. The prosecutor smirks that it's fortunate Asher is not back, because if he returns and finds collusion, her fate will be worse. Isabella pleads that Asher will believe in her and that he treats her well. She hopes he will surely come for her. Asher storms into the palace, demanding to know what happened to her. A maid and the prosecutor step forward. The maid looks uneasy as the prosecutor takes charge. The prosecutor produces the sealed verdict declaring Isabella tried and not coming back. Asher accuses them of taking her to trial while he was away, and the prosecutor says the evidence left no reason to wait. The prosecutor adds that many dislike Isabella and that he isn't the only one who hates her. Asher says he doesn't care about accusations. He will not let them harm his wife. The prosecutor sneers that she might have committed treason, but Asher refuses to accept that without proof. The prosecutor insists all evidence points to Isabella and hands Asher the documents to decide whether to save her. She claims Isabella's acts were acting, and that she never truly joined the Holy Blood clan, so her mind is unstable. The chapter ends with Asher staring at the papers, forced to choose whether to believe the evidence or protect the woman he cares for. Isabella demands to know where Asher is, and a soldier answers that Asher has returned, but refuses to see her. She asks why, and the guard explains Asher has been the Empire's marshal since childhood and despises traitors. Isabella shouts that she's not a traitor, desperate and indignant behind bars. The marshal's supporter reasons that guilty people never confess, but Asher will stop defending someone once he suspects them even a little. She tells Isabella to give up. Isabella refuses, insisting Asher had shown her kindness and would not be so heartless, blaming others for misunderstanding him. She accuses the marshal's camp of framing her and controlling her fate, claiming letters were forged, and she was separated from Alan by force. The supporter coldly notes that her status as a prisoner dooms her, and the outcome will be death, by hanging according to results. The supporter then points out there is a way out, and reminds Isabella it's not too late to change course. She explains Isabella's crime might be forgiven in the common law, but as Duchess Dracula, it cannot be easily overlooked. Isabella asks what that means. The supporter lays out two documents. One grants divorce, the other forces a guilty plea, and signing the divorce could let her become a commoner again. Isabella protests she is innocent and cries that guilt should be decided by facts, not others. The supporter argues that giving up the Duchess title would at least spare her life, and that Asher is offering his greatest mercy by letting her live as a commoner. Isabella refuses, pleading that stripping her rights is cruel. The supporter replies that she never truly had rights, since she was already a victim when sent here, and now must decide whether to live or die. Flashbacks show her lonely imagination of someone protecting her was false, and people still hate and reject her. She remembers being ignored, and believes no one believes her truth despite longing for affection. Outside, officials report the Duchess, sign the documents, and she is no longer Duchess Dracula. Someone offers to show the papers signed by Princess Isabella, but a noble shrugs that she no longer merits his time. Shouts of traitor and calls for execution erupt from the crowd as the verdict becomes public. Isabella stands shackled as the crowd hurls curses and demands she suffer and die. Bloodied graffiti and insults cover the prison walls while she endures humiliation and isolation. The marshal's supporter watches the chaos and comments that the spectacle might be excessive. She reminds herself that Isabella, as princess of the human empire, receives the treatment she deserved in their view, and that both the king and Asher were once deceived by her. A friend challenges a comment about the king, but the supporter smiles and asks for loyalty, hinting at betrayal if refused. The nobleman agrees there's nothing more to discuss, and the current ending must restore their original lives. The supporter notes the show is only beginning, as Isabella remains trapped and broken at the marshal's mercy. Isabella, bewildered, demands why this was done to her and struggles to understand the betrayal. Guards prepare her to leave, and a maid asks if she must dress, as she is told she'll learn at their destination. She recalls Asher's warm smile and how his appearance hasn't changed, though they are no longer the same people. She realizes that though he looks familiar, their relationship has changed beyond repair. In a formal procedure, the priest declares the marriage dissolved and orders Isabella to return Asher's token. Isabella notes she had to dress up even while still a prisoner, and that the process strips her of everything little by little. The officiant announces her marriage is ended and presents the ring and words that she is no longer Asher's wife. Isabella and Asher are publicly declared separated, and she feels oddly relieved, as if burden removed. Freed from duty, she promises to be herself from now on and no longer worry about the future the way she once did. Asher watches from afar, quietly asking where she will go now and showing concern beneath the public mask. Courtiers toast Asher for regaining freedom from the princess and praise the marriage's cancellation as the Empire's good fortune. Nobles claim Asher's marriage links to the Empire's safety and insist his new status brings luck to the realm. After celebrations, Asher excuses himself and says he will step out for a while, avoiding the fanfare. Isabella returns to a small room and tries to tidy it, telling herself it's clean and she can start anew. The Marshal's supporter vows bitterly to make Isabella suffer, unable to accept her escape from power. A maid asks where they're heading early in the morning and is told the king has summoned Isabella, and details will be revealed upon arrival. Isabella wonders if the Holy Blood King still wants to punish her, fearing his anger might not be gone. A hooded envoy greets her and tells her the human empire refuses to accept her, but then offers choices. Isabella remarks that the news of her divorce surprises many, and she reflects that even her parents expected she would die in the Holy Blood Empire. The envoy says that, although she lacks recognition, he regards her as a subject and will present two options. She asks what they are, and the first is revealed: marry High and become his duchess again. The second option is to enter the Holy Blood Empire Academy to study and rely on her own strength. Isabella protests that the king is biased, and Asher wields the Empire's true power and secrets, making the whole situation confusing. Advisors debate the matter, calling the cancellation and relocation convenient, and a reasonable arrangement given her guilt might be considered treason. A noble proposes pairing her with the idolist duke to keep her controlled, which others find proper given the circumstances. The black-haired supporter refuses to go to the academy if forced, vowing resistance rather than being sent away. Someone replies that if forced, they'll just placate her like a teacup, treating her as an object rather than a person. Another argues Asher has already endured similar things, and moving rooms makes little difference. It's the same fate in another place. Asher briefly agrees the plan is sensible, and the group weighs whether she'll accept marriage or academy life. One suggests the academy treats newcomers harshly, so she will likely choose marriage as the easier route. Asher doubts and bets she'll head to the academy instead, while others predict differently. Isabella surprises everyone by cheerfully deciding to go to the academy and accept the harder path for independence. Counselors warn that academy life in the Holy Blood Empire will be difficult and full of clan traditions she must follow. Isabella insists that even if the path is thorny, she prefers hardship over dependence and the risk of disasters by relying on others. The hooded envoy acknowledges her choice and accepts it, granting her agency. The court spreads the news. The princess chose the academy, and many resolve to help or monitor her closely. The supporter admires her boldness and decides to make arrangements to ensure no one ruins Isabella's future at the academy. Some suggest persuading her to marry High rather than go to school, urging quick action to stop her departure. Advisors counsel a duke to dissuade her from the academy because she will never be ordinary, but the young commander insists the school is where she'll go. Meanwhile, the palace readies transportation, and Isabella prepares to leave under guard for the academy, determined to rely on herself this time. Night falls as she is escorted from the palace and asks where they are taking her, still fighting to keep control of her fate. A noble insists she cannot go to the academy and tries to drag her away, but she resists and declares she will not marry someone she does not love and that she can study well. Her escort pleads that the academy lacks warm food and she could die there, begging her to reconsider for her safety. Isabella screams that she'd rather accept death than give up her choice and vows to use her own strength to earn respect this time. She storms out, refusing to be sheltered or controlled, determined to face whatever comes for herself. Staff announce the carriage is waiting, and Isabella finally feels the long-awaited moment to leave the palace at last. A quiet servant reveals he has followed her, and though she asks why, he remains reserved and simply watches her. He offers a steamed bun, worried she will go hungry on the road, showing a small kindness she did not expect. He tells her she may refuse but wants her to live a better life, and she thanks him, saying she's fine though she is moved. She reflects that taking away titles doesn't equal forgiveness, and she won't blame him for pursuing wealth and power. Still, they now have nothing to do with each other. Alone, she vows one day to return with dignity and enter through the front entrance rather than be carried in secretly. Suddenly, a familiar figure greets her, The man in the top hat appears and speaks with a polite flourish, surprising her. She bows and calls herself Isabella, saying no one likes her here, and he confesses he avoided seeing her because she was both princess and duchess, and he felt unqualified. Now free of titles, she announces, she can mingle without obstacles, and smilingly declares the timing is right to meet others again. Asher appears and catches her attention, prompting bystanders to whisper about him and his motives. He asks if she fears him, and then calmly offers her a divorce present, a dagger that can help defend herself and survive at the academy. She asks what it can do, and he awkwardly suggests practical uses like peeling fruit, trying to make light of it. Isabella thanks him, but refuses the gift, saying she doesn't want to rely on anyone, and that since they are divorced, they have nothing to do with each other. Asher accepts her refusal and insists he only wanted to help as a former husband, but she steadfastly declines and says she will manage on her own. She admires the Holy Blood Empire's beauty and vows to begin anew in the academy, embracing her choice despite warnings. The top-hatted gentleman notes not every place is like the capital, and seems thoughtful about her resolve. Asher notices the landscape differs, and the chapter closes with him watching her depart, the future between them uncertain as she steps toward the academy on her own terms. A sudden glare from his eyes cuts through the carriage's darkness as she peeks out, nervously asking how things look. He suggests taking her to see other parts of the Holy Blood Empire, and promises it won't delay her entry to the academy. Riding together, he teases if she's scared, and she insists she isn't, then asks why he asks. She smiles and admits it's because he's there. He narrows his eyes and asks if he should hurt her. The question feels threatening. She replies calmly that if he wanted to hurt her, he could have done it earlier when she first arrived. He softens, praising her courage and wisdom, and swears he won't harm her. The carriage moves through a deserted, undeveloped territory of the Holy Blood clan, while he explains there's little to see and encourages her to rest. She notices the region is dark and reaches out to touch a coffin in the carriage, curious. He jokes about using perfume inside the coffin to help sleep and offers a bottle if she needs it. Nearby scouts spot trouble and shout to chase after someone, preparing to act. The leader asks whether they should intervene themselves or let others handle it. He murmurs that the 4 Holy Blood clans are complicated as the group approaches the scene. One guard warns that keeping a dead body whole might change things, and suggests a different approach. The man looks guilty and apologizes to the princess, then lifts her protectively. The rescuer carries her and tells his men they can return to report now. Far away, a pale woman confirms the victim has no chance of survival and praises their result. He settles the princess in his arms, and she asks why she's on the ground, confused. She wonders where their carriage went. He explains the horse had a stomachache and offers to carry her to the academy. She hesitates about the impropriety, but he questions what's wrong with it. She blushes, flustered by the close hug, and admits she feels like he's taking advantage of her. He insists the situation forced his hand, and she stammers that he didn't take advantage of her. She recognizes his unusual light-footed movement and remembers legends about that skill. He explains light feet is a clan ability she will learn over time. He asks if she's afraid. She admits she was at first, but now she isn't. She says she trusts him because she knows he won't hurt her. 2 academy officers discuss recruitment and note one trainee hasn't arrived yet. One officer suggests waiting 1 more minute. The other urges them to move so they won't miss the show. Suddenly, the princess calls out to be allowed to report in and rushes forward. The officer tells her recruitment is closed and she can't enter, though she pleads to be let in. The officers notice someone, and one points him out, making the others turn to look. The doors open, and a clerk welcomes them to the academy. She wonders why they suddenly allow her in. He guesses they didn't want her upset. She accepts that explanation and smiles, relieved. Energized, she takes his hand and urges them to go. Inside, a panel questions whether she is from the pure-blood G family of Rhine Town, and she answers yes. She realizes the identity they provided might be fake and feels uneasy. The head asks her to sign the admission file and a life and death contract. She repeats the contract name, alarmed, as he says entering campus severs ties between the student and outside. Her companion confirms she must sign. He looks solemn. She asks if signing is mandatory, and they answer yes. Determined, she decides to sign. The staff gives her an academy uniform and a room key for a 202. The officer formally welcomes her to the Holy Blood Academy and calls it the Bloody Academy. She thinks to herself that it's just studying at an academy and that the ominous tone is unnecessary. He asks again if she's scared. She replies no and repeats it's because he's with her. He admits he can't always be by her side. She smiles and says she won't be scared as long as she has those memories and someone to accompany her. He says he's relieved she is open-minded. He hands her a small bottle and says it's for her. He explains it's a potion to hide human scent that she must take every 7 days, and he will deliver it on time. She drinks, and he comments that she trusts him completely. She confides that there is no one else she can trust, and that without someone to believe in, she would have nothing left. He reassures her to trust him and pats her head. She wonders where room A202 is and steps into the academy halls. He explains the grand staircase and the academy's founding by the first Holy Blood Queen. He says the girls' dorm is off-limits to boys, so he can only escort her this far. She asks when she'll see him again. He promises soon, and she thanks him for taking care of her without even knowing his name. She enters her bedroom and gasps that it's a dreamlike room. The bed smells strange, and she leans closer, unsettled. Pulling back the cover, she screams as blood stains the sheets. She stares in horror, wondering if the previous occupant bled to death. Voices outside shout, "Go to hell," and "serves you right," leaving her confused. The taunts continue, and she realizes the sounds come from outside the dorm. Alarmed, she recognizes it's vicious campus bullying that can be deadly. A smirking student explains everyone here uses torture, and no one feels guilty. A bound victim screams as a whip is raised. She decides she must save him and rushes toward the noise. The bully instructs anyone to take turns whipping the victim and to pass the whip along when done. Another insults and orders the whipping to continue. She struggles against someone who tries to hold her back while she pleads to be let go so she can help. A voice demands whether she's pureblood, startling her into silence. A boy steps forward and asks bluntly how she plans to save him if she's not pureblood, warning of dangers. She refuses to stand aside, insisting she can't watch him die without trying to help. One of the red-haired leaders yells for her to stop. She calls out to him and asks if he just summoned her. He asks if she intends to stand up for the victim. She answers yes. He asks what qualifications she has to interfere. He taunts her family background and questions how she dares to step forward. She seethes but keeps her resolve, thinking he's only slightly above non-purebloods. He mocks that being non-pureblood excuses being bullied or killed, and others laugh. He asks what the victim did to deserve this, and offers to explain slowly. A narration explains that the academy is controlled by 4 big families, each with its own influence. The academy serves those 4 major families and refuses to protect those who refuse to join a party. The narration adds that the 4 dukes would rather waste resources than save someone outside their circle. An officer asks her which side she chooses to join among the purebloods. She declares she will be like the man who refused to choose and will choose no side. The red-haired leader says her example of a lonely ending sits before her and mocks her bravery. She steels herself, thinking today is her first day and they shouldn't dare harm her, though they slowly surround her. The leader decides to end the session for now and promises to play with her another day. He sneers that it's no fun to let her die so quickly. She realizes half-bloods have been bullied to death at the academy and that she is a fake pureblood. Still, she doesn't regret stepping in, even if her actions feel meaningless now. She wonders how desperate the victim must have been. At dawn, she reflects that staying with the Holy Blood Empire long ago taught her the lower-level bloods fear the light. She wonders if, without that guiding beam of light, her fate would have matched his. She thinks that if she'd known earlier, she might have accepted the other man's offer. She resolves to rely only on herself and walk her chosen path to the end. Elsewhere, someone asks whether all students for this term are enrolled and notes confusion about whether Isabella died. A superior suggests perhaps a misunderstanding, since no body was found, and orders a report on the new freshman. The chapter closes with the officer noting this year's freshman details are unusually confidential, leaving the woman shocked and unsettled. Lee notes how devoted the emperor is to protecting the human princess. She thinks that no matter how much he guards the princess, the world around them still has its own rules. A staff member orders the students to report any questions later. Lee wakes feeling uneasy because the Holy Blood clan's active hours are reversed. She finds a note telling her not to attend class and wonders if it's a warning to avoid danger. Despite the warning, she resolves not to hide and says she must face her purpose. She firmly decides that escape is not in her nature. Organizers confirm all students have arrived for the ceremony. One assistant says there might still be one missing. Lee arrives breathless and apologizes for being late. The official recognizes her and tells her to take a seat. The ceremony begins as the lecturer calls everyone to start. The lecturer explains the academy's goal: to produce members for the Holy Blood clan. He reassures students that anyone can join through effort, regardless of bloodline. Lee realizes clan membership can even come through rituals and is intrigued. The lecturer warns that few truly become Holy Blood members, and many die trying. He stresses the importance of blood and life force for the Empire's soldiers. The speaker eyes the crowd and coldly states that sitting here risks their lives. Lee thinks about whether, as a human, she could ever become a vampire member. Students are told they will be placed into camps based on placement scores. Lee worries about what the placement exam will test and fears she'll fail the clan knowledge portion. She laughs inwardly at the exam's simplicity and remembers childhood tests. Lee apologizes for coughing earlier and covers for it. The lecturer asks a colleague to follow him for a moment. He quietly advises not to make trouble if the girl behaves. The colleague reveals the girl has a powerful backer. A student points out the Empire forbids the 4 dukes from entering, but the other wonders if the backer might be someone else. They hush each other to avoid drawing attention. The lecturer thinks Lee never spoke up and wants to see what makes her special. Lee sits bored because she already finished answering everything. She plans to sleep a bit and hand in her paper when others finish. When time is called, the proctor announces the end. Lee cheerfully says she is already done. The lecturer reacts in shock when he sees her paper. Later, someone asks if she's curious about her rank. She calmly says she already knows her rank without looking. Lee gives her name when prompted. Another student notes she doesn't care about her ranking and assumes she has strong ability to choose freely. A classmate asks if she selected a family clan yet. He presses her again about her choice, but she answers no. Lee declares she won't join any of the clans tied to the half-blood who died. She refuses to choose them. He reacts loudly, accusing her of being reckless. The boy warns that without a family clan's protection, life will be hard, since families influence teachers and roles. Lee thanks him, but insists she doesn't need his help. She laments that the placement also tested martial arts and worries she'll rank last there. The boy checks if she is all right and stays by her side. He offers comfort and suggests her opponent might be weak, urging rest. Lee protests that her injuries are serious because she rarely hurt before. He teases that refusing to choose a side will lead to trouble like another student. Lee asks his name as he starts to leave. He answers quietly that his name is Lee Morgan. Lee reflects that being head of a major family didn't bring her freedom before. She lies down and feels pain and exhaustion, wondering what her future holds. A knock at the door makes her ask who it is. A visitor named Ali appears and asks if he disturbs her. She invites him inside, and he explains he came because he heard she might be hurt. He offers medicine and helps her feel less uncomfortable. Ali protests that she need not praise him so boldly. He awkwardly mentions he is still modestly dressed. Lee recalls he is a gentleman and wonders why he wasn't the one she was meant to marry. In a flustered moment, they nearly kiss, and Lee panics at the closeness. She cries out when something hurts, and he apologizes profusely. Lee praises Ali as gentle and says any future wife would be lucky. He finishes treating her and leaves medicines with instructions to care for herself. Lee explains he expected she might be injured after the martial arts test and worries about not staying updated on her classes. She asks if he will always be at the academy, and he hesitates at the idea. He agrees to stay when she asks him to, making her very happy. Lee asks if he teaches at the academy, and he admits he kind of does. She hopes that means they'll see each other more often. He says it's nice to have a friend in a place where she has no relatives. Elsewhere, a senior official asks what's wrong with a report he reads. The official in charge of education notes that despite overseeing the court, he knows the younger man's math ability and asks him to review the results. The young man shows the test results and calls them terrible. A table reveals the entrance exam scores released by the ministry, and names are confidential, but scores are surprising. The officer explains the math section tests logical reasoning and independent thinking. He reveals the questions were the ones he made previously. A colleague confirms these are the same questions used 3 years earlier for promotion to Holy Blood. The senior says no one has ever scored a perfect 110 on his paper before. Another claims the perfect 110 this time doesn't represent an upper limit, and more might achieve it. One officer suggests a genius may have emerged and notes the princess is present among the students. The senior scoffs that the princess has never scored more than 20 points on her report cards. He worries another genius might appear and decides to go meet that person in person. Determined, he says he will secure any student who achieved a perfect score, regardless of gender. The new family clan selection ceremony is announced to commence. The lecturer calls out who placed #1 overall during the entrance exam. To everyone's surprise, Lee Morgan from Greenwich City walks on stage. She is instructed to select a family clan to join. The crowd wonders if Lee will choose the Asher family and asks if she plans to join the army. Lee privately seethes our classmate, who assumes she'll pick a clan just to escape punishment, calling him petty in her head. The announcement reveals Lee is from the G family in Rhinetown, which surprises her. When asked, Lee says she doesn't want to join any family. She tells teacher John she won't enter a family because she wants to live for herself. John replies that she doesn't have the right to choose her placement. He explains only the top 10 students may choose, and Lee ranks 200, so the academy will place her. Lee angrily asks what the academy plans, and John answers that they must obey the distribution. She protests that she got first in literature, but last in martial arts. She pleads to not be assigned, but he refuses. John points out that the military and finance ministries are full and suggests she join education since she has a good record. Lee thinks it might be useful to work under Lin, who oversees Empire education. She recoils as classmates whisper judgments and reminders of past anger she caused, wondering who will befriend her now. Lee fears she has offended everyone, worries she cannot escape the four families' curse, and wonders if she will ever have a good life. She explains that lower members of the Blood clan cannot see the sun, so she follows them at sunset and rests at sunrise, while others keep their distance and whisper. She worries her body will break down if things continue. Then someone bumps into her in the hallway. Pain floods her from recent bruises, and she cries out that it hurts. When people trample her, she tries to kick free and protests that they are stepping on her. Lying there, she thinks even those who share her household despise her, and vows she can't keep getting bullied. Bystanders shrug and call it none of their business as a dignified young man watches from a distance. She debates whether to reveal she knows him and wonders if he actually recognizes her. He turns away coldly, saying it's none of his business and to not stand in his way. Nearby girls gush over seeing Duke Hugh in person and hope it's a good omen for freshmen. She admits to herself he didn't recognize her at all and probably never paid her any attention. Lying on the floor, she finally realizes what it feels like to be lonely in a crowd. A hand reaches out, and someone asks if she's all right and what she's doing here. A polite young man named Lee kneels and apologizes for being late. She smiles and tells him he always shows up to comfort her when she's at her worst. She says she can't stand, so he offers to take her back to her room for a bath. In the tub, she stares at her marked body and thinks this is only the beginning of her scars. Still, she believes that one day she will live in the sun as freely as others. Lee asks again if she's all right, and she replies that she is. He admits relief, saying he feared she had fainted because she went quiet for a while. She reflects that Illy is a very gentle person. Elsewhere, a different student is announced as the one who ranked first on the entrance exam. A noble asks if the separate examination paper has been started, and an assistant reports the leader of the Supreme Court is replying right now. The top-ranked student struggles and panics over the unexpectedly difficult separate paper. He tells himself he did his best after finishing. When the graded result shows a low score, the leader comments that his talent isn't in mathematics. The leader explains the last exam was basic, but this paper was written by him personally, so failing isn't uncommon. Afterward, the leader dismisses the men and tells them they can leave. He reveals that Majesty forbade revealing information, so he had to test the student's ability with a separate paper. Comparing the two exam results, He concludes the papers couldn't be by the same person and wonders who the genius is. He wonders if it could really be the princess. Then he coldly decides the person who left earlier was useless, calling her an aunt no one values. Later, she timidly asks where classroom 1-8 is. She tries to squeeze past taller students and asks them to move, but they ignore her. Seeing the clock, she panics about being late and worries what to do. Classmates suddenly scatter from her presence, and she stands confused at their reaction. In class, someone announces they are the grade leader and the math professor who will take roll call. She apologizes for being late as she enters. The professor scolds her, accuses her of thinking she has talent, orders her out, and deducts 10 credit points. She stands bewildered and asks where she should go. The professor threatens further deductions and warns she'll never pass if she argues, so she meekly accepts and leaves. Outside, she decides it's only the first math class and that she'll take the test later to earn the credits needed to pass. She worries briefly about how she'll manage her other classes. That night, she practices archery and counts that this is the 30th time she's shot an arrow for the class. She fears she'll be kicked out if she misses again. When she finally lands a bullseye, she cheers in relief. A boy points out her arrow hit his personal target instead of her own, startling her. Another classmate teases that she can't do anything except math, making her pout in embarrassment. A different boy warns her he doesn't know where she got her confidence and tells her not to confront the 4 families in public. She answers optimistically that a bad first day doesn't mean the rest will be bad. He grimly warns that most of the Blood Clan are indifferent, selfish, and cruel, and hopes she can keep her optimism. He adds there aren't many like her, and he doesn't want to see her end up dead, then tells her to take care as he leaves. Although his words were encouraging, she felt they sounded like a curse. Determined, she promises she already has a plan to deal with the bullying and insists she isn't a genius, but will work harder than others. She vows not to fear the sun and to keep practicing archery while others sleep, repeating shots 100, 1,000 times until she can match everyone else.